Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Canadian Prairie. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, again, we've been talking about a transition to a cooler air mass, but again, I pumped the brakes on the longevity and the intensity of that cold. And the good news is it does look like while we may dip down to a slightly cooler than average pattern, it will probably only last for a couple of days before we honestly may transition back to a warmer pattern. So, as we look at the temperature anomaly forecast over the next 5 days, again, keeping it overall over the next 3 to 4 days with that warmer air mass. But even as we look out into the future, looking at days 6 through 10, only moderating back to that white shading is right about at average across much of the prairie. So we'll dive into that. Also looking at a couple opportunities for some snow across the region, a little bit of low confidence in where some of this snow is going to end up falling, but we'll talk about that here in a moment. So you look at the satellite picture, we've got a big trough making its way ashore on the Pacific coast here of British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. That will be bringing some precipitation in as we get toward the end of the week. As we look at the radar here early on Wednesday morning, we do have some light snow falling in southern Manitoba, maybe some light flurries here across northern and western Alberta as well, and perhaps some very light snow flurries falling elsewhere across the prairie here, not being picked up by the radar as well. As we look at the first round of snow that comes in here, let's go ahead and we'll bring it back, stepping through time. Again, nothing major going on until we get to the later part of the day today. We'll start to see that first round of snow emerging here from portions of northern and western Alberta. Along and north primarily of Highway 16 through the late evening hours, but then expanding down into portions of southeastern Alberta and then overspreading southern and central Saskatchewan as we get into the early morning hours on Thursday. On sunrise on Thursday morning, likely waking up to snow across this region here, exiting eastern Alberta, moving into western and southern Saskatchewan. So we'll take the drawings off here, take this further to the end of this run. We're getting into midday Thursday now, kind of right across right through the middle here over the southern half of Saskatchewan, and then getting toward the Manitoba border here as we get into the late evening hours on Thursday, into the early overnight hours on Friday. And this then gets into far southern portions of Manitoba before it starts to wane. As we get into the overnight hours Thursday into Friday, we'll watch for the heaviest band of snow to start emerging here, and this is the one I expect to drop a corridor of heavier snow right along Highway 16 and just north of that. If you're south of Highway 16, the odds are a little lower you pick up that significant snow. We'll look at some of the different solutions here as we get a little bit deeper into this video. Now the background state, we've got a ridge that's building in here across parts of the western U.S., across southwestern Canada. And we've had little clippers kind of riding up and over the top of that, but we're going to watch a trough build into the region here as we get into the next 4 or 5 days. And that's what brings a little change here, even though it is temporary. So here's the ridge. We see a little system making its way up and over the top of that right here. We'll take this into, we're getting into Thursday, Friday now. Here that ridge is at its strongest as we get into Friday and Saturday. That, again, allows the temperatures to warm up. That's when the warmest round of temperatures will move in here, is again late this week into the weekend. Here's the trough, though, we see moving ashore and taking hold over the region as we get into the back half of the weekend, Sunday into Monday. This brings the cool down into the region. This brings that push of snow as well in advance of that. But then it looks like a ridge you see already building in on the back side over the early or to the middle part of next week. So again, that's why right now looking like this cold is not going to lock in by any stretch of the imagination. So let's look at the precipitation forecast then from the European model, watching these rounds of snow move across the region. Here's that first little round that drops maybe a trace to a couple of centimeters across areas along and south of Highway 16. That's the one we looked at on the high-resolution Canadian model there that moves through the area through the day today, getting into Thursday, and then Thursday night into Friday as we talk about the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. Another round of snow then along and north of Highway 16 as we go through the day on Friday. And then here comes the most well-defined storm system here emerging on Saturday across western portions of Alberta. This one travels right along Highway 16 as we go through the day Saturday into Saturday night. Again, there could be time for this to still shift. We'll get one last good glance at it on Friday, and we should be able to give some specific snowfall amounts here as we get the pinpointed track on this. But this looks like the biggest snow producer, the biggest moisture-laden storm system here is this one that moves through the area Saturday from west to east. As we head through the rest of the weekend, then Sunday into Monday, another storm system kind of skirts off to the south of the Prairie, could bring a little lingering snow to portions of southern Alberta primarily as we get through the back half of the weekend. Some snow amounts here, the European model in the top left, the American GFS in the top right, the Canadian model here in the bottom center. Now I'm leaning toward the solution here with the European model and the Canadian model, and it is very close to Highway 16, and the highest amounts here between 10 to 20 centimeters, so it could be significant snow here, but a very sharp cutoff on the southern end. That's what makes this a very tricky forecast, because again, you see the very sharp cutoff here where we've got a trace to a centimeter. You head maybe 50 to 100 miles northward, and you're into 10 to 15 centimeters of snow. So take this as an early look at what we're expecting. As we head through the rest of this work week, with the snow systems here moving through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're talking about a trace to a couple of centimeters. This big corridor here, this is the Saturday system, and this is the one that we still have some time to talk about. But understand, if you're in the Highway 16 corridor or very close to that, you are under the gun for a potentially significant snowfall as we head through late Friday, primarily during the day on Saturday, and then getting into Saturday night. Some early guesses here at snowfall totals over the next 5 days, or the next 6 days, taking it through Tuesday of next week, February 4th. Calgary, 3 to 5 centimeters, got double centimeters there, and oversight. Medicine Hat, 3 to 6 centimeters. Edmonton, 10 to 15. Saskatoon, 2 to 4. Same thing for Regina. Winnipeg, probably a trace to 3 centimeters, but again, a lot of variability in here as we talk about the Saturday, Sunday snow. So let's talk about that a little more specifically on Friday morning. Temperatures, again, we'll watch things cool down, but watch this quickly rebounding as we get into the middle part of next week. That is good news. So as we take a look at what that actually looks like in terms of a 10-day temperature forecast, Calgary, again, warming. The warmest days Friday, Saturday, as the ridge strengthens and reaches its peak over the region. Those high temperatures approaching 10 degrees on Saturday, quickly dropping down below freezing for our highs Sunday and Monday, but then look at the quick rebound as we get into early next week. Edmonton, same story, warmest days Friday and Saturday, below freezing Sunday and Monday, but then right back to the freezing mark Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Saskatoon, same thing, warmest day is Saturday. Saturday looks to be a very warm day across the region, 7 degrees for the high in Regina. Winnipeg, above freezing Friday, or above freezing on Saturday, right around freezing Friday and Sunday, and then the cool days across the region look to be Monday and Tuesday.